As a newly graduated mechanical engineer, you're stepping into a world that operates very differently from what you've experienced in school. The challenges you face will be more complex, the expectations higher, and the way you work will need to change significantly. Today we'll talk about the key mental shifts you will need to make to succeed as a professional engineer in a consulting firm. The four major mental shifts that we will be discussing today include shifting your perspective from solving defined problems to tackling ambiguous challenges, shifting your focus from focusing on technical accuracy to balancing practicality and constraints, going from working independently to collaborating with a team, and going from theoretical learning to outcome-driven execution. Key mental shift number 1, going from solving defined problems to tackling ambiguous challenges. In school, your job was to apply equations and analysis methods to find the correct answer. The well-structured problems had clear solutions based on formulas and principles, and if you studied enough, you could get an A. In the real world, things are different. Real-world problems are messy. The problem statements are not clear. Clients may provide incomplete, ambiguous data that requires some informed assumptions on your part based on your experience. The problem statement may change, and you will need to be adaptable and have a system that can absorb change to account for this. There exist multiple possible solutions with trade-offs. You have to find a balance between accuracy, feasibility, and constraints like time, cost, and resources. Your engineering judgment, your instinct, is what you will need to hone to be able to make informed decisions on these trade-offs, determining what is reasonable, practical, and feasible. This instinct, this engineering judgment, cannot be handed down in a single session. It cannot be transferred through osmosis. It is something that you as a junior will need to take initiative on to develop. Do this by following the logic of your seniors, seeing where they make certain decisions and backtracking their thought process to find the critical intuition gates. Besides all the technical engineering improvements, this instinct that you will build is the main value that you as an engineer will contribute in your career. Real-world problems require judgment and adaptability, not just equations. At some point in your career, you will become the point of contact between the company and the client. You know now the complexity of the real world we live in and the ambiguity that you will be faced with when trying to define the client's problem. These are things that you will need to solve for. You are the one that has the insight to be able to guide the client to provide the best possible information that will make your job clearer so that you can provide a suitable solution given certain trade-offs. It starts by asking better questions. Poorly asked questions lead to wasted time and incorrect solutions. It is critical that you hone the skill of crafting a good question, one that will make the objective and correct answers very clear without introducing further ambiguity. Good questions clarify objectives, constraints, and client needs. These questions may be questions that clarify the scope, like what is the primary goal of the project? What problem are we solving? It may highlight some constraint, for instance, what are the budget limitations? Are there regulatory requirements that we must follow? You may need to ask clarifying questions. Can you explain the problem from your perspective? And what assumptions should we challenge? Asking the right questions early will save you time because you will focus on the problem that needs solving, and that will provide the most value to the client, even if the client did not know that at the outset. The second key mental shift is from focusing on technical accuracy to balancing practicality and constraints. In the previous section, I have alluded to the fact that there will be some constraints and trade-offs that you will need to consider. One of the biggest shifts you will need to make as a consulting engineer is learning how to work within practical constraints. Unlike in school, where you're given ideal conditions, the real world has limitations, and those dictate what solutions are actually viable. These practical constraints may impact the project significantly, making it more or less complex. Your job will be to ensure that the constraints have been addressed in the most appropriate way, not necessarily the most convenient. The constraints that you will need to address throughout your project are set out here. You are already aware of the operational or functional constraints. These need to be addressed during your design or analysis by incorporating your engineering knowledge and analysis methods. Next, which I have alluded to before, is project management constraints like time, resource availability, and this can include people that can do the job and tools used for the job, and cost associated with the task, and the budget available to complete the task. You will also need to determine whether the solution you suggest can actually be manufactured, the methods for manufacturing, whether the materials that you've selected can perform the function, and how the solution may be processed. And you will need to incorporate any regulatory constraints which may exist. Sometimes a best practice includes following the regulatory standard to determine your analysis methods. The application of your engineering knowledge will evolve now from just supplying an answer, showcasing that you know how to apply an analysis method, to maturing your analysis methods to address complex, ambiguous problems in a complex and counter-defined real world. A tip that I can give is this. In your studies, you were taught analysis methods that were idealized to provide you with a conceptual grasp. Often, there may exist a standard that sets out all the real-world considerations that you may need to include in your project execution for industry. Learn about the standards that are applicable to your specific industry application. Whether it be structural analysis, fluid dynamics, vehicle or aeronautical applications, or design and procurement for mining, it is advisable to use these standards to update your analysis methods with the real-world parameters that you will need to incorporate. The standards have been scrutinized to make this incorporation as accurate and robust as possible. So don't reinvent the wheel. A good habit to form is to create and maintain a repository of this information that you can easily refer back to. Finally, as you get to the point of seeing yourself as a resource, find out about how you can best manage yourself to provide most appropriate value to the company. Find out what the company values and adapt to apply yourself accordingly. It may differ from your instinct, but it will pay dividends in how you are integrated in the company. If you make constraints a part of your workflow, incorporating it at every stage of the project, from the get-go, with a referenceable repository, your growth as a practicing engineer will be fast-tracked, and your deliverables will quickly be consistently valuable. The third mental shift is going from working independently to collaborating within a team. While studying, we dreaded group projects, knowing that there will be some person on the team that won't pull their weight. Being the conscientious ones, we will work at the very last minute to try to get everything pulled together to form some semblance of a deliverable. But we knew that we would have done so much better working alone. I know I prefer to lock myself up in my room and just struggle through the trenches to find a solution. It may still be an option to work alone in industry, but the reality is that your work is never fully only your own effort. You become part of the company team, working together to deliver a solution that is acceptable to the stakeholders. Sometimes, even the stakeholders may become part of the team. You may also even have some engineers from different disciplines to work with, technicians, project managers, etc. You cannot work in a silo and expect that the results that you've been able to achieve in that posture may be reproducible in industry. At the very least, your senior is a part of your team and needs to be consulted in the work that you deliver. It is always better in a project to have discussions with the different stakeholders before you finalize any part of your deliverable. Speak to those that are to do quality assurance on your project, on your report, like your technical lead, to incorporate improvements early on. Discuss the manufacturing methods with the manufacturing team prior to finalizations. Maybe they have some best practices that will reduce your headaches later on in the process. Speak about the relevant parts of your project with those in your surroundings that may have experience in those parts and hear if they can expand on your existing knowledge or scope. If you integrate your work with others, they will gladly come to the table and supply whatever they have that could benefit you. Don't be nervous to look foolish or hide away. Or even worse, never assume a more experienced person knows less than you about a topic or understands the problem wrong. You may not be experienced enough to know what their perspectives are rooted in or why they might be groundbreaking. One of the most critical parts of your job going forward, in any position you may find yourself in throughout your career, is going to include effective and persuasive documentation. This includes emails, reports, presentations, summaries, etc. You will need to focus on honing the skill of explaining your ideas to people of various technical ability to gain insight from them that may be impactful in the project delivery, where a client might share a previously unknown constraint, for instance. Poor documentation will lead to miscommunication, while clear communication is what drives a project to successful, impactful delivery. Only when your work is clear for others to understand and act upon can you truly provide value. The fourth mental shift is going from theoretical learning to outcome-driven execution. Up until now, your performance has been measured by grades. As you're stepping into industry, your metrics for success is changing. Success is defined by how efficiently and effectively you contribute to projects, how well you apply knowledge to solve problems. Learning never stops. The difference is now you're learning to apply knowledge, not just recall it. Your knowledge retention might have been great in university, but it will mean nothing going forward. The way that this looks in practice is actually quite elegant. Imagine two engineers. The one spent weeks perfecting the solution, getting the design just right, double-checking every single assumption and calculation, working from first principles to showcase his engineering mind. He determined that the client did not really know about these kinds of things and that he would be the one to educate the client on exactly how they didn't know. He delivered the project perfectly wrapped up in the best written prose he could muster, but it was 2 weeks late. The second engineer spent time articulating the client needs and wants. He iterated quickly through rough ideas and used some quick and dirty rules and best practices to get to answers that were close enough to render a safe and effective design. He delivered the solution early and eloquently, though there may have been 2 mistakes his senior had to rework and adjust. The engineer that delivered value delivered it in a timely way and addressed the required points accurately enough. An additional crucial step was taken by this engineer. He got buy-in from the client. The solution addressed all the major concerns that the client had, and the representation, though not fully fleshed out, was understandable to the client. The second engineer was successful in his project. The first, while correct, was not successful. We see that there are few things that are important in the workplace now. The first and most important is that you will need to manage your time, energy, and information in such a way that you don't waste time or energy on the things that are no longer important. The skill of learning for application becomes a very crucial part of your repertoire. The second thing that is so important in the workplace is your communication skills, and the third is your contribution. Your focus in your job becomes the deliverable. You need to communicate clearly to the client that the problem has been solved, and sometimes the formulas fall to the wayside. But in contributing, you also need to ensure that your work is done right the first time and your assumptions are practical and real-world appropriate. Applying your knowledge is where your value proposition lies. Practically, this shift will be one of the best contributing factors to your success. Change your focus from detail to deliverable. Define the outcome that will make this project a success. It may be different for different people, and you will need to navigate the stakeholder impact matrix. Solve the problem for the highest invested, and solve it in a way that there is buy-in from them. Then prioritize your work. Focus on what is most impactful, and move unimportant tasks out, or spend less time on them. Don't focus on getting things perfect. Just focus on what is most impactful, and move unimportant tasks out, or spend less time on them. Don't focus on getting things perfect. Just get them done. Your value falls within time constraints now, and finally, get results and focus on good communication. Your days hoping for good grades are over. You hope for buy-in from now on. So what does this mean for you? As you begin your journey in a consulting firm, actively work on shifting your mindset. Instead of looking for perfect answers, seek practical solutions. Instead of working alone, embrace teamwork. Instead of focusing on technical perfection, prioritize delivering results within constraints. Your mindset determines how effectively you transition into consulting. Adapt quickly, embrace uncertainty, and focus on practical problem solving. Transitioning from student to professional is first and foremost about thinking differently. The mental shift you need to make comes from active reflection and application. So here's your next step. Take one of these shifts and start applying it this week. Maybe it's asking better questions. Maybe it's focusing on results over perfection or improving your communication. Small changes now will compound into massive career growth later. I've included 2 exercises to help you solidify what you've learned today. First, download the worksheet on identifying your personal knowledge gaps and strengths. This will help you reflect on where you are now, what technical and professional skills you need to develop, and how to start improving. The more honest you are with your answers, the more valuable this exercise will be. List the technical areas where you feel confident. These are the areas where learning for application will go the smoothest. Then identify some topics where you may need to improve on the topic. Remember, when coming up with your plan for improvement, always focus on deliverables thinking to apply. If the topic that you plan on improving does not constitute immediate action, have the information ready for reference for when it does become actionable. There is no use trying to remember it. Then rate yourself on communication, teamwork, and problem-solving abilities. The areas that you have identified as strengths will build your confidence in your industry journey, while the areas that you have identified for improvement will become goals that you can work on in your own capacity to improve your own professional positioning. This will take time and not be an immediate result. However, an immediate result that will come from this lesson is the following. Create a list of goals and write down the plans to address it. In the time that you set aside for the activity, write out the one goal and its plan for improvement. Next, I want you to take one of your past academic projects and re-evaluate it through a professional engineering lens. How will you handle it now that you are engineering as a service for a business given real-world constraints? Think about the different practical constraints that you will need to address in the project, but also think about how you can position yourself as the engineer that will provide value. List out the goals and most impactful deliverables that you will need to complete. This worksheet and this activity should take you around 1 hour to complete if you really wrestle with the content. Take some time to work through both of these exercises, and you'll gain a deeper understanding of your strengths and gaps while getting an early glimpse into how real-world engineering projects operate, aligning yourself for success. That's it for today. Now it's your turn to put these ideas into action.